Where are you based out of?
I'm in Austin. I'm in Austin,
Right.
Texas.
So, well,
Yep.
then it's easy to find good food to sit across the table with, in
Oh
Austin,
yeah, tons, tons,
and of every
absolutely.
variety, it's like,
Yeah,
uh, uh, there's, if you search what you think of as a foreign food, quote unquote, you find out how much influence uh, Texas culture will have on that food. I mean, if you eat in Thai and Vietnamese restaurants down on the Texas coast, certainly you can get really traditional stuff. But then their kids, they're second and third generation, and their kids are like figuring out how to do shit with pork barbecue
yeah,
along with a Thai plum sauce.
yeah,
And it's delicious, right? So
yeah.
I love that.
That's cool. Wow, that's very insightful, man. That's absolutely. I think that's important though with food too. Like you've got to give it, it just has that local flair along with this
Sure.
foreign twist, right? Too, which is
Or with
great.
whatever the heritage is that you
Yeah,
bring to it,
exactly,
whether it's
exactly.
that you're bringing, if you're bringing traditional, Southern cooking to the forefront, you're obviously going to talk about the traditions that were handed down to you. But if you
Yeah,
don't talk about slave culture, then you're really doing it wrong, because
yeah,
so much of what we eat came from that. I mean, the English didn't eat field peas. That was
100%.
cow's food.
Yep.
And yet, name a New Year's. I can't name a New Year's that I didn't eat black eyed peas.
Yep.
I mean, it is part of the culture.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love that,
that's
man.
one thing.
I love that.
I'm an amateur chef, and I love that stuff. So
No, I love that. I love that you care about the history and where it comes from. To most people would honestly not care, right? And I love that, and I love that you want to respect its true origin. That's awesome, man. Look, fellow chef to amateur chef. I'm an amateur chef too, even though I owned a place. I've been in the industry 15 years. We're all amateurs at the end of the
right.
day. We don't know what we're doing.
We should cook together sometime.
Oh man, I love to. I love
Yeah,
cooking. I mean, yeah.
I did a deal. I've done only one. I did only one last year, but there for a while there, I was doing two or three a year. We put up on my website. It was my wife's idea. We had a dinner party, and it's midnight, and we're washing the dishes. This is probably about 6, 7 years ago. We're washing the dishes, and she said, "You should do this for fans." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And because my friends who'd come over were songwriters. There's two
Yeah.
couples, and one, two of the people were also songwriters. And so, I mean, naturally after dinner, we pulled out some, dessert and some, after dinner drinks, and sat around the kitchen table, the dining room table, and played music. Right. I mean, it's as normal as pie. And
Totally.
so,
Love
she said, "You should," and I was like, "What?" And she said, "We'll talk about it in the morning when we're both more sober." I said,
that.
so she said, "Look, just, tell people you'll cook a gourmet dinner for 8 for them, and then do a concert in their living room afterwards." And she said, "And
That's
put the biggest sticker price we can think of on it." And we did, and it worked. And I used to do about 3 or 4 of them a year. I now do, it's down. I haven't pushed them in a long time,
sure.
but
Yeah.
I'm thinking that once things settle down and we can actually do that again, I might, push that before, because it takes the weird part about touring is you can't just say, "Yeah, we'll be there tomorrow."
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so knowing it's like, okay, I just got vaccinated and everybody else is just getting vaccinated, and it's whenever it is in 2021 that this is taking place. And I can call my agent and go, "Okay, you can put this on the books for 3.5 or 4 months from now," right? And it won't just be me doing that. It'll be every touring act in the world trying to do that. So,
That's true.
and so I think there'll be a log jam. And we talked about, it's like, hey, let's put up, we'll come do the gourmet dinner,
It's a great idea.
backyard thing with you. So who knows? We'll see.
That's a great idea. I've never heard of this before, man. I feel like I've heard of everything, and this is something new. I never heard of a songwriter cooking as well. This is
Oh
new,
yeah,
dude. This
yeah.
is new. I don't know. I love it. I love this idea. Boy, this is a great. I got so many. Man, my brain is firing off left
Well,
and right here.
so the way
This
I
is
learned to
awesome.
become a cook was I found myself as a single dad when my oldest boy was 2 years old.
Yeah.
And I knew how to make scrambled eggs. That was about it. I could make pancakes from a box mix. And
Add water, right? You're
add
like,
water,
I
right?
got this.
I got this, right? So um, the so I called my mom and she sent me one of the cookbooks that they literally gave to brand new newlywed women in the 1950s. Start on page, she was like, start on page 1 and call me if you have questions, and it
I
was
love
really
this. I
basic,
love
but
that.
I kind of fell in love with it. And then when my son was 5, he moved to France with his mom, and that was a devastating thing. It's how I wrote the song Godspeed. That was a
Oh
lullaby for
wow. Yeah.
him, that later got cut by the Dixie Chicks. But we would go and visit him all the time, and it turned out that there was this one family that had like a bed and breakfast across. Basically the house was one of those double houses where really ancient, first duplexes, from 300 years ago, and and they would rent out the other side, and they lived in one side, and they had a kid same age as my son, and so we were hanging out with that family, and the mom was a great cook, and she just started teaching me all these family French recipes and all of these techniques,
Wow.
and I really fell in love with it, and
Yeah.
then started you know learning to cook buff bourguignon for friends and family, and that kind of thing. So it
Listen to
kind of
you.
came by accident, but it's been a great creative outlet in addition to writing songs and writing literature and everything
That's
else I'm
awesome.
trying to figure out how to do.
I love that, man. That's amazing. Plus, you're learning French style, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
that's
right. And it really made me realize how much French food influenced Mexican food.
oh yeah, a lot of foods.
And because um, the French occupied Mexico for, I'd say a short time, but I believe it's several decades. you know, because between Spain and it becoming independent from Mexico, and then back to the French and during the Napoleonic period. But the way in which they blend spices together, a whole bunch of that um, comes from French technique. And if you think about it, some of the fancy, what we think of as the fanciest foods in the world, regardless of where they come from, all came from peasant culture. How do I make this really, really tough, chewy, sinewy piece of the worst piece of the beef that is available because the king or the lord took all the great stuff? How do I make this, edible,
Yeah,
and
you're
taste
right.
good,
That's right.
So,
That's right, man. Yeah. God, man. Yeah, look at this. This is flipped the script here. I love that. This is like the best podcast, man. I gotta say, you're like the most not probably one of the most knowledgeable guests I've had on that know about food.